None of this is opinion when I say that all these increased taxes that they convinced you to push through because, oh, this is the right thing to do, have actually solved any of the problems that they say they're going to solve. This segment is brought to you by Eastside Weight Loss Clinic. I'm down 37 pounds on the program, and I lost most of that in just 2 months. Do what I did and what so many other undivided viewers have done. Schedule your free 15-minute consultation today at eastsideweightlossclinic.com. We have been talking about, obviously, the story of the legislative session will be not only Bob Ferguson and whatever kind of governor he decides to be, but the $10 to $12 billion budget deficit that we're just all of a sudden facing, and Inslee gets to leave office and stick the rest of us with it. And we've been saying that really there's only two options. It's the same options any sort of family has. Either you cut back on your spending or you have to make more money. So for a family, it might be you got to pick up more shifts or whatever it is to bring more money in if you want to maintain your current family's spending and level of spending. For the government, new money is just money they get from you. That's the only way the government gets money, is by taking more money from you. So for Democrats in Olympia, the question is, do you cut bloat from the budget, which we know there is plenty of bloat, or do you come to all of us and say, hey, we're incapable of sticking to a budget. We're incapable of managing our spending. And so now we're going to take more money from all of you. And just to give you an idea, well, first, they made it crystal clear what they're going to do. So now it's not even a guess. Don't even have to guess anymore. Drew Mickelson over at King 5 News sat down with the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader, both Democrats, the two highest ranking Democrats in Olympia, for an interview. They had very festive Christmas sweaters on, I'll say. But they made it very clear what their plan is to deal with the $10 to $12 billion budget deficit.
These legislative leaders say they are confident voters would support raising new taxes to bridge the budget gap.
The voters gave us clues about where we should do that. We should be taxing rich people and companies that can afford to pay more and that fairly should be paying more to support the services that we all benefit from as a community.
There will be an argument that that was a mandate on the past, but you're saying, hey, that's a sign that we should continue on this direction.
Absolutely.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you they would do? And what did Senator Jamie Peterson, he spells it out there very clearly. They're going to they're going to expand the tax on capital gains. They're going to expand the tax on capital gains to include more people who aren't just the 2% of the uber wealthy. And they are going to try to push through what amounts to a tax on high-paying jobs. That was something that Representative Drew Stokesbury, the House Minority Leader, brought up with us when he was on the other day talking about what he's been hearing Democrats are floating. So remember, Seattle passed. First, they tried a head tax. They ended up repealing it on their own. And then they passed in the middle of the summer in 2020, while everyone was focused, understandably so, on what was happening up at the occupied protest zone. They pushed through, because they thought the political environment would allow for it to happen unscathed, a tax on high-paying jobs, which meant for businesses that pay their employees over a certain amount, they're taxed for the, I guess, privilege of having employees who they pay a living wage. You know, they love that phrase. It's like, hey, you need to pay your employees a living wage. Hey, you're paying your employees too much money, so we're going to tax you for paying your employees too much money. The progressive left has utterly lost its mind. So that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do, because they believe they need even more money than they already have. And they think that because voters decided not to repeal the tax on capital gains when they had an opportunity to in November, that they have a mandate to expand it. That they have a mandate. I told everybody this is what was going to happen. I mean, I'm going to just go roll tape. You guys know this, that this is a justification for them to expand the tax on capital gains, to bring in even more money, to fund programs that aren't working, to fund programs that line the pockets of their cronies and their allies, as they have had in so many other things, like the homeless industrial complex, like they have in the climate industrial complex. And just to, again, remind you, because we talked about it on the show earlier this week, so first of all, we know that more money, them bringing in more money and creating new taxes or expanding taxes, is not going to fix their budget problem. How do we know that? Well, because bringing in new taxes has never fixed their budget problem. Because since 2013, this we talked about on the show earlier this week, this from the Center Square, the state operating budget has increased, again, just in the last 10 years, from $38.4 billion to $75.5 billion. So they've doubled their budget and their spending in 10 years. And we still have a $10 billion budget deficit. So if taxes were a way to avoid a budget deficit, don't you think we would not be in a budget deficit right now? No, because it's not about needing new revenue. It's about being able to simply manage a budget and spending. Over that time frame, since 2013, these are just a few of the new tax revenues that they've brought in. The carbon tax through the Climate Commitment Act, which is hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars a year. The capital gains tax, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars a year in new revenue. The long-term care tax. Legal weed. I mean, what the hell is going on with that tax money? I thought that was going to be a windfall for our state. Vaping products tax, an increase in the hazardous waste tax, an increase in the B&O surcharge for higher education. Those are just a few. But those first three, those account for hundreds of millions of dollars in additional revenue to our state in just the last year and a half to 2 years. And they still find themselves in a massive budget deficit. And now they're saying, oh, new taxes will fix this problem. No, because all you're going to do is expand the size of government with new taxes. You're not going to cut anything. You're not going to learn your lesson at all from the last 10 years. We know in our state, more money has never solved a problem because we wouldn't have all the problems we have. I don't know what it's going to take for people to wake up to this. It's very clear. I mean, this isn't even my opinion. More money has clearly not solved any problem. More taxes have clearly not solved any problem. Not on the environment, the Climate Commitment Act, and all the climate initiatives that we have that are costing working class people a ton of money. Our climate outcomes are worse than when Governor Inslee took office. Less recycling, more carbon emissions. He hasn't fixed anything. It's a total grift that has made his friends and allies very, very wealthy. And he's going to land a 7-figure job in the climate sector. I told you that. Within months of leaving office, he will land a 7-figure job in the climate sector that is a result of all the climate policies he pushed on all of us. Again, none of this is opinion when I say that all these increased taxes that they convinced you to push through because, oh, this is the right thing to do, have actually solved any of the problems that they say they're going to solve. Homelessness. How much money are we spent with billions on homelessness, only to have a worse homeless crisis? I'm like a broken record. I'm a broken record. Because it's insane to me that people don't catch on to that. That it is such a grift. I mean, where in the private sector would any of this happen? Because they can't just manufacture money in the private sector. The government can. Well, the federal government can print money. But when our state government needs more money, they just increase taxes. They don't budget. They don't cut. They don't lay off like the private sector does. So this is insane. So they have said, can you play, Nicole, the cut from Senator Jamie Peterson one more time?
These legislative leaders say they are confident voters would support raising new taxes to bridge the budget gap.
The voters gave us clues about where we should do that. We should be taxing rich people and companies that can afford to pay more and that fairly should be paying more to support the services that we all benefit from as a community.
There will be an argument that that was
how tone deaf
a mandate on the past, but you're saying, hey, that's a sign that we should continue on this direction.
Absolutely.
And so tone deaf in the sense that, so they're going to tax rich people more. They already have the capital gains tax. They're going to tax them more. And then they're going to tax businesses. For the privilege of being successful businesses in the state of Washington, we already have one of the worst business environments in the entire country. Remember the numbers we showed you from a progressive institute before the election. This progressive institute was pushing out these numbers, hoping to disprove the narrative from the Trump administration that Kamala Harris was bad for the economy. And the numbers that they showed across the country, 85% of counties were seeing an increase in new businesses. And the progressives were like, see, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden aren't bad for the economy, except at the same time, they proved my point here in Washington state because Washington state was red. It was an outlier. It was one of the only states in the nation that was not seeing business growth. And that's from progressives because they were like looking at it at a national scale, but for us, it looked terrible. We had seen a significant drop in the number of new businesses. That's because it's not advantageous to have a business here. And you saw, just as one example, if the route that they're going to go in Olympia is to pass a tax on high-paying jobs across the entire state, they need only to look at what happened in Seattle when they did that, because it was just meant to be a tax on Amazon, right? What did Amazon do? They didn't even fight back against it. They took 10,000 jobs and they moved them over to Bellevue. That's what they did. But now that's not enough, right? They were able to move the jobs out of Seattle into Bellevue and invest in all this new growth in Bellevue, new buildings, new jobs, helping Bellevue with new infrastructure. So they escaped the tax on high-paying jobs from Seattle. But now if they do it at the state level, those jobs in Bellevue that they took out of Seattle for that very reason will be subject to the same tax they tried to avoid in Seattle. So what will they do? Okay, we got out of Seattle, that saved us. But now it's a statewide tax. Now we get out of the state. You do not have to be a rocket scientist to understand that. That's what history has shown us, very recent history. So you think that our state will be more successful if the most successful businesses leave it? How dumb do you have to be to believe that? Punishing success, punishing entrepreneurs, punishing business growth. And you think that that's going to help our economic outlook? You think if businesses like Amazon leave, that that's going to help your budget crunch? You know how much money they bring into the state every single year? I can't believe this is the leader of the Senate in Washington State who thinks that that is the key to get us out of a budget crunch that their misspending got us into. And I keep going back to because it's just the perfect example. In this state, we are putting out government contracts to provide laser hair removal to transgender inmates. Until that's not a line item, you don't get any more money. We shouldn't be giving you another dime. We have so much waste in the state. Governor Inslee's right-of-way initiative, spending $500,000 to $1 million per person to get them out of a state right-of-way and out of homelessness. We have a spending problem. You guys know that. I know some days I'm preaching to the choir with all of you. The question is, how are we going to get more people to understand that? But by all means, raise taxes. By all means, raise taxes. That's to the point I'm at. We could spend the next few months, like we did last legislative session, on the steps of the Capitol, holding rallies, fighting back. I mean, how many rallies did we do last year to try to get the fix for police pursuits and the year before? And we did, that was eventually successful via the initiative. And even before the initiative, we were able to, I think, move the needle on getting them to roll back police pursuits a little bit. And that's because that's a life or death situation. It's a life or death situation for people on our streets. It was a life and death situation for law enforcement and for our communities. But with this stuff, taxes aren't life and death. I think we let them bury themselves. I think we let them send big new business taxes to the desk of the new governor, Bob Ferguson. I say we let them send that bill that would make homelessness a protected class over to Bob Ferguson. And I think we let them bury themselves 6 feet deep in bad policy in his first term in office. That's where I'm at. Rather than go down to Olympia and fight and speak and all these things. That's where I'm at because this stuff is so utterly stupid that I really think we have to hit rock, San Francisco depths of despair before it's fixed. So I'd rather just let it happen. I'd rather get there sooner rather than later, and I really hate to say that.